All right, begin with some big news in Nigeria's power sector involving Geregu Power Plc, the first electricity company to be listed on the NGX in October of 2022. The Fund for Export Development in Africa, FIDA, the Development Impact Investment Platform of Africa's Export-Import Bank, has acquired a strategic minority stake in Geregu Power Plc. Now, let's take a look at how we got there. Here are some of the details. Internal approval received in December of 2022. That 5% stake is through FIDA, as we've mentioned, the Fund for Export Development in Africa. It has said it is focused on Africa's energy sector. The share acquisition was completed yesterday, February the 21st. And of course, this is the first major foreign investment in the NGX company so far in 2023. And as we've mentioned, Geregu Power Plc, the first electricity firm to be listed on the NGX. As a reminder, FIDA did announce the close of a $670 million fund back in September of 2022. And we take a look at some of the details here. $270 million for his FIDA Direct Equity Fund 1, $250 million for a Strategic Initiatives Fund, $125 million for an Africa Credit Opportunities Fund, and $25 million for a venture fund. So again, FIDA very much focused on infrastructure development in Africa. Joining us to discuss this deal and Nigeria's power sector is the CEO of Geregu Power Plc, Mr. Akin Akinfemiwa. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning to you. What is the message to the market considering the significance of this transaction?
Good morning, Rotus. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
For me, I think, and for Geregu Power Plc, I think there are three key messages here. The first one, I would say, is a testament to our adherence to world-class corporate governance standards and practices, which in turn is driven by a stellar leadership at both the board and the management levels. So that's the first message. The second message is FIDA's firm belief in our short, medium, and long-term goals towards becoming the power company of choice in Nigeria and also in the broader West African region. The third one, which I consider as very significant, is FIDA's firm belief in the Nigerian electricity supply industry as a key driver of structural transformation for trade on the African continent. For me, I think those are the three broad messages for this transaction.
Is this a signal to other interested parties, particularly of the stature of the Afreximbank and the stature of Geregu here in Nigeria in the power sector, which continues to grow, that could take further strategic positions in the company in the future?
Yes, and that's a definite yes. If you may recall, FIDA is also joining the State Grid Corporation of China as an institutional investor. They have been here before FIDA. And when you look at it, yes, it opens the door for other institutional and resale investors who may want to be a part of our growth as well as a success story.
Now, does due diligence go both ways in a deal like this? I mean, you wouldn't entertain an offer to take a minority stake, in the company from just anyone, right?
Correct. It goes both ways. On the side of the institutional investors, such as FIDA, there's first of all an extensive due diligence with respect to a complete overhaul of what we do in terms of our corporate governance structures, in terms of everything that we do. And that is so extensive because FIDA is so thorough, and they're not just going to invest in just any company, as you know. But for us as the target, we are also very, very particular about the people that we bring into our domain as well. What is most important for us is to identify such institutional investors who have a corporate alignment not only with our key goals and objectives, but also to the Nigerian electricity supply industry, and ultimately to the benefit of our shareholders.
Now, what are your, well, I want us to talk about the power sector, your expansion goals for the company, because if you go to the Geregu website and you look at the management staff and your picture is there, underneath it says you're responsible for strategy, expansion, and so on and so forth. So your expansion goals for the company, and particularly renewable energy, is that in the mix as we look towards a climate-friendly future? Because FIDA, it's understood, is taking a focus on the energy sector in Africa, which of course has precipitated this minority stake in your company. So what's the expansion goals, renewables and so on? Can you tell us a little more about that?
Rotus, that's very correct. Our expansion goals are very, very ambitious. And what I would say is that in the short to medium term, we're first of all going to take advantage of our immediate environment, that is Nigeria being a net exporter of fossil fuels. That means that our short to medium term goals are going to be predicated on thermal generation. If you may recall, in 2013, at the start of the privatization process and when we acquired Geregu Power Plc, our nameplate capacity was 414 megawatts at the time. Effective capacity at the time was less than 100 megawatts. We ramped up capacity not only to 414, but also expanded the nameplate to 435. So today, we're at 435 megawatts, of which 70 to 80% of that power goes on the grid, obviously due to grid constraints. Moving forward, what are these ambitious plans? The first thing first is to take hold, or what I would say, take ownership of our feedstock by ensuring that we have a vertically integrated gas business, which obviously is very, very crucial to generation. Thereafter, we are in pole position for the acquisition of a nearby plant, which will ramp up our capacity by another 440 megawatts. And that is very soon. And it's a very short-term business objective. Once we acquire the 440 megawatt plant, we will then run a combined cycle operation on the basis of these two existing plants to ramp up capacity to 1,300 megawatts. So we're looking at about an expansion of 900 megawatts within a short period of 2 to 3 years. And that's our expansion plan. Again, looking at your question on renewable energy, we must, first of all, accept that Nigeria is in a delayed energy transition phase, particularly when it comes to putting renewable energy generated from renewable sources on the grid. So what we are going to do is, in the interim, we are going to ensure that we maximize the hydrocarbon potential or capabilities of the nation to ensure that we're able to contribute our quota to the national grid.
Your point is well noted, and with respect to the increase in capacity and your contribution in terms of maximizing hydrocarbon potential, what do you make of this whole debate on energy transition? Of course, you've got pressure from the West saying that developing nations like in Africa, Asia, and so on should, make that transition faster to renewables. But then you've got some pushback from players in the sector saying that, look, we have fossil fuels here and we have to maximize, what we have in the ground. Is it possible to strike a balance for a player like yourself in the sector between trying to ramp up hydrocarbon capacity and also trying to appease, the Western powers and the climate activists and so on who want to see that transition? How do you strike that balance?
Rotus, is a very difficult balance to strike. Let's take Nigeria, for example, where we have abundant hydrocarbon resources. And as such, being in a delayed energy transition, the first thing we have to do is to ensure that we maximize everything around and within our environment. That's the first thing. Without not taking cognizance of the clamor for renewable energy, we also have to put that in the mix, but then we have to define a few things. First thing, we have to define when such investments generate what I would say a good return with respect to transforming, taking that power onto the grid. That's number one. Number two, we have to also look at what is feasible and what will improve power generation in Nigeria at the moment. How many solar projects do we have to do to meet the energy demand of 20,000, I would say maybe within the next 4 to 5 years? What are we going to do? Are we going to abandon all the investments in thermal and hydro and then begin to move at the expense of not being able to generate sufficient energy? That's a critical question. If you look at the UK today and you're conversant with recent events, you would also realize that even the UK is going back to coal in order to sustain that energy efficiency. So it's a balance. While we understand the importance of green energy and its immense benefits to the environment, we also have to be very practical in terms of our energy needs, in terms of our energy demand, and sort of create a proper transition plan that ensures that there's energy sustainability, and at the same time, it's not too capital intensive to investors.
Thank you so much. It's an ongoing debate, ongoing, very, very fascinating discussion with respect to the energy players in Nigeria. So back to your expansion plans and the ramping up of capacity. Is your growth challenged or limited by Nigeria's power challenges? And does that, set you up, funny enough, on the flip side, does that set you up for more growth if the infrastructure in Nigeria improves down the line?
So if we go back to 2013, and this is not only speaking about Geregu, this is generally speaking about the industry and speaking about the Gencos. We've always had grid capacity limitations, but yet operators or Gencos rather have ramped up capacity in excess of the maximum grid capacity that we have. So to say that we are being limited by the growth of the sector, I think we are not limited. I don't think we are limited with that. It's a case of chicken or egg, which comes first. Are we going to wait for the entire infrastructure to be in place, or are we going to ramp up our infrastructure in readiness for what is to come? We are aware that the federal government is taking up a lot of initiatives, we know, such as the presidential initiative on power, which is expected to ramp up grid capacity and also expand the distribution capabilities for ensuring, towards ensuring that Nigerians have the power that is needed to drive economic prosperity. That said, we will continue to do our own bit. And also, if you look at it, the cost of doing it now may also be cheaper than doing this in the future. So we will scale our growth and investments, of course, carefully, but we will also ensure that whatever opportunities are presented in the future, we're also ready for them.
All right. Now, still along the same lines, looking at the financials for 2022, we did see revenue down about 32%, net profit down about 50%. And this is why I asked you about the challenges of the sector. What's the plans, I guess, to get to flip that around for this fiscal year?
Okay, thank you for that question. So I'm happy you said down, down, down. So that means that you're already comparing to the prior year, the prior financial year. 2022 was a very difficult year for a lot of thermal generation companies, particularly those of us located on the northern axis of the gas supply network. We had a major problem along the Trans-Forcados pipeline and subsequently the Forcados oil terminal, which curtailed gas production by about 50 to 60%. And once gas production is curtailed, it definitely affects our generation capabilities because of potential, because gas is our major feedstock. We had gas disruptions in excess of 6 months, and the result that you even see is as a result, or is as the result, the performance that you see is as a result of all that we did prior to the disruptions in gas supplies. Now the situation is resuming. It's gone back to normalcy, and of course we've started producing again. And I am positive that, I mean, the current year and also future years, alongside all those expansion plans that I've discussed in the course of this interview. I know that yes, the growth is going to be exponential in so many years to come, starting from this year.
Okay, so that optimistic note there. So looking at the sector, do you have any indication of more investments coming into Nigeria's power sector, I guess after these crucial elections that are coming up in just about 3 days?
As a business leader, I would say yes, but I won't be able to say a definite yes, in the sense that I'm aware that there are a lot of investors who are taking a close watch at the evolving political landscape, and I'm sure their decisions will be based on what evolves at the end of the day.
What is your, I think you mentioned the privatization exercise about in 2013 or so. As well as that exercise, how do you see, I guess, the outlook for the power sector in Nigeria?
Okay, so let's go back to 2013. Like I said, the generation capability at the time was so low. And what has happened since then is such that the companies have made extensive investments with respect to ramping up individual capacities. In 2013, effective capacity will have been maybe around 2,000 megawatts. Today, effective capacity is in the region of 10 to 11,000 megawatts. So it has driven what I would say a huge level of investments in the power sector, more than ever seen. If you look at Geregu, for example, we've carried out, in the course of carrying out a second major overhaul, we've increased capacity. Those kind of investments, or such investments, have given the implicit confidence to investors like FIDA that there is a lot of growth in this sector. We've been able to create employment, and of course we've been able to generate income in terms of taxes to the government or to the federation accounts. So the 2013 privatization exercise, I would say it's a success. However, we have not been able to deliver that full dividend with respect to providing uninterrupted power supply. So we need to build on the success of that privatization exercise. And one thing that is key is the expansion of the potential of the grid potential. If programs like the PIP or even future privatization of the grid are put in place, then we can then say we would have realized almost the full potential of the entire power sector in Nigeria. But that said, there are a lot of initiatives that gives us a very, very bright outlook. The first one is the fact that the National Electricity Regulatory Commission, the NEC, is already creating a sustainable liquidity system through the partial activation of contracts. That means that we do not need to depend on what I would say subsidized payment from the government going forward. We've been running this for about 7 months now, and it's looking like something that will sustain itself now and in the future. The second thing is all the various initiatives like the PIP for that the government has already embarked on. We're positive that with the equipment that have been channeled towards this cause, we believe that will also give us significant improvements in the sector. So the outlook is very bright. I think it's just like every other privatization exercise. I think we need a bit of patience, and we also need a lot of private-public sector partnership. We need to be able to work with each other to ensure that we maximize the potential of the sector.
Great stuff. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today about this landmark deal with FIDA, with the Afreximbank. Mr. Akin Akinfemiwa, CEO, Geregu Power Plc, thank you so much for your time.